In 2008, two broke roommates in San Francisco couldn't make rent. They had maxed out their credit cards. Investors had already said no to them again and again. So they did something no serious tech founder would ever admit to doing. They designed novelty cereal boxes, printed a few hundred of them, and sold them for $40 each on the street, just to keep their company alive for one more month. Today, that company is worth over $100 billion. It operates in almost every country on Earth. You've probably booked a stay on it yourself. This is the story of Airbnb and the cereal box that saved it. This is how they did it. Rewind to 2007. Brian Chesky and Joe Gebbia were roommates in San Francisco, and rent was due. A major design conference was coming to town. Every hotel in the city was sold out, and they had an idea that sounded a little embarrassing to say out loud. They would put 3 air mattresses on their apartment floor and rent them out to conference attendees who couldn't find a hotel room. They called it Air Bed and Breakfast. It worked, barely, bringing in just enough cash to cover that month's rent. But when they tried to turn it into an actual company, almost nobody believed them. They pitched investor after investor. Most didn't even bother replying. The idea, strangers sleeping on air mattresses in other strangers' homes, sounded less like a business and more like a way to get robbed. By early 2008, the company was nearly dead. They were personally thousands of dollars in credit card debt. The website barely had any bookings, and rejection after rejection had made it clear that nobody in the traditional investing world understood what they were building. That same year, America was in the middle of a historic presidential election, Barack Obama versus John McCain. And Brian Chesky had a strange idea. Instead of chasing more investor meetings, they designed limited edition cereal boxes, Obama O's and Captain McCain's, novelty political merchandise, dressed up as breakfast cereal. They bought the actual cereal in bulk, hand-assembled the boxes themselves, and sold around 800 of them at $40 each. It sounds like a joke. It kept the company from going bankrupt. It raised roughly $30,000, enough to keep the lights on, and more importantly, it caught the attention of Y Combinator, the startup accelerator that would eventually take a chance on them, largely because a team willing to hand-make and hand-sell novelty cereal to survive was clearly not a team that would quit easily. Getting into Y Combinator kept the company alive. But it didn't fix the actual problem. People still weren't booking stays. So the founders did something that should not have worked at the scale they needed. Instead of buying advertising or building new features, they got on a plane to New York City, where most of their listings were, knocked on the doors of actual hosts, and personally took professional photographs of their apartments with a rented camera. That's it. Better photos. It should have been a tiny, meaningless detail. Instead, bookings in New York doubled almost immediately. People weren't rejecting Airbnb because the idea was bad. They were rejecting blurry, dark, amateur photos of a stranger's spare room. Once the listings actually looked trustworthy, people started saying yes. The founders had discovered something that would define the entire company going forward. When your product depends on trust between strangers, you sometimes have to do the unscalable, unglamorous work yourself. One apartment, one photograph, one host at a time, before you ever get to scale anything. So did any of this actually work? By 2009, bookings were climbing steadily, and the company that almost didn't survive on cereal money began raising real venture capital. Growth compounded for the next decade. Airbnb expanded from a few air mattresses in one San Francisco apartment into millions of listings in almost every country on the planet. In December 2020, Airbnb went public, and its valuation on the very first day of trading soared past $100 billion. Brian Chesky and Joe Gebbia, the two roommates who once couldn't cover rent and had to sell novelty cereal on the street, became billionaires almost overnight. Today, Airbnb generates roughly $10 billion in revenue a year. It has hosted hundreds of millions of guest stays worldwide. And it did all of it by starting with 3 air mattresses, a few hundred boxes of homemade cereal, and a rented camera. So, what can you actually steal from Airbnb's cereal box comeback? Lesson 1. Rejection isn't proof your idea is wrong. Nearly every investor Airbnb approached in the early days said no. The idea wasn't broken. Most people just couldn't see it yet. Lesson 2. Sometimes you have to sell something ridiculous to fund the real thing. The cereal boxes weren't the business. They were just what kept the real business alive long enough to matter. Lesson 3. Do the things that don't scale, especially early on. Flying to New York to personally photograph listings wasn't efficient. It was necessary. It fixed the actual problem stopping growth. Lesson 4. Trust is usually the real product. Airbnb wasn't selling air mattresses. It was selling the confidence that a stranger's home was safe to stay in. Once they solved that, growth followed. Lesson 5. Hustle isn't a personality trait. It's a phase. Every founder has a season where the company survives on nothing but stubbornness and a willingness to do embarrassing, unscalable things. The goal isn't to stay in that phase forever, it's to survive it. Every business goes through a season where it's one rejection away from folding. What's the unscalable, slightly embarrassing thing your business needs you to do right now? If this gave you one insight, share it with someone building something. I'll see you in the next one.